so many people that are focusing on what is going wrong, right? We've all heard it. Top 10 mistakes to avoid. 5 things you're doing wrong on Pinterest right now. 6 things you have to stop doing today. And I'm not going to lie, I've done it before too. And I really thinking about this the other day. I was like, "Dang, why are we all so negative all the time?" Like um and there's reasons that that is happening, right? So I want to share this with you today, give you some really solid things that you can be doing to stay in positivity and actually move forward with your Pinterest account and getting more traffic, getting more followers, getting the kind of results that you want, right? We all want traffic over to our sites and then sales from those people. So really quick, my name is Jennifer Priest. I am the owner and founder here at Smart Creative Social. I created a program called Smart Pin Pro that helps business owners and bloggers uh, get traffic with Pinterest. I help you create a Pinterest strategy from scratch and then teach you how to run that yourself. And one of the biggest things that I have to tell people to do is to start looking at um, positive things, to start looking at the things that are actually working. So somebody give me a heart. Thank you. Also, I live up in rural Arizona, and I'm curious how the quality of my internet is because it's super windy and cold outside. And I have my Starlink. I'm using my Starlink. It's all the way across the house. So we're kind of experimenting with placement. It feels a little slow, but I'm curious what the experience is for you guys because I'm using my Starlink. I'm so excited. It's satellite internet. In case you guys don't know, a lot of us that are like super rural have to know this. Satellite internet, and you can just operate it anywhere. It's like super cool, but it's only Wi-Fi, and so like there's a special connector I have to get in order to connect it to my computer. Like it's all these things. So we're trying to kind of experiment with placement. All right, so enough about that. Let's talk about positivity. So I want to tell you about the first time I rode a motorcycle. It's a very short story. The first time I rode a motorcycle was a couple months ago. I was over at my friend Todd's house, and he has a Harley in his kitchen, and it was raining. We have extreme weather here. It was raining, and we were talking, and he was like, "You've never ridden a motorcycle before?" And I was like, "No." And so we went out on the motorcycle, and he was like, he was trying to teach me how to balance and stuff. Like I've ridden bicycles, right, but never actually a motorcycle. And one of the things that he's saying is like, where you look is like where you're gonna go. Right. So if you're looking this way, you kind of tend to turn the handlebars that way and you kind of lean your body that way. And so where you look is where you're going to go. And this is super important for us when we're doing our marketing because especially with Pinterest and Pinterest being so visual, where we look is basically how we're programming ourselves for where we're going to go. So if we're always focused on what's not working, right, then like we're looking at all the pins that aren't working well, we're looking at our posts that aren't getting traffic, we're looking at the lowest performing boards, we're basically going to be going that way. And I'm not saying to be like Pollyanna in your positivity about, Pinterest, be looking at numbers and things like that. But what I am saying is to be more discerning with what you fill your mind with. And when it comes to something like Pinterest, because what we're doing in our analysis is very, very visual, it's super important that we're careful or we're discerning in what we're putting into our system. And so by that, I mean, like when we're working on Pinterest, we want to be, all of our pins have a graphic, right? That's what pins are, a graphic or a video. And then they have a description. And if you're doing, I'm not even talking about idea pins right now. Like we can talk about that another time, but I'm talking about literally the kind of pins that are going to get you traffic. And there are 2 kinds, or well, there's 4, but there's 2 main kinds that are organic and free. One is a standard pin, right? Just a regular graphic image with a description. The next one that's going to get you traffic is going to be your video pin, right? That's going to be a video, again, with a keyword-rich description. Then you have product pins if you have products. And then you have pins that you're putting advertising money on, right? So those are the things that are going to get clicks. What we focus on in my program is strictly organic. So we do standard pins and video pins. We also do idea pins, and we talk about shop or product pins, but we don't do like a whole big focus on them. Because especially when we're working with bloggers, it doesn't apply to everybody. Not everybody has a shop or a catalog that can be imported into Pinterest, that kind of thing. And I don't want to get too far off on that track. But mainly what we're looking at is the visuals on video pins and standard pins. So when we're doing that, as opposed to like looking at just data analytics, like if you're in Google Analytics and you're looking at the traffic on a post and you want to look at your low performers and see how you can improve them, that's something that people would normally do. But on Pinterest, when we're looking at our low performers, we're also seeing the graphic, we're also seeing the visual, and that can act as a way of programming us. So we want to be discerning, again, like I said, with what we fill our mind with. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is, how do we measure what's working, right? How do we make decisions about things on Pinterest? And before I get into that, I kind of want to talk about, like, why does everybody focus on the negative stuff, what's not working? We're conditioned to do that in school, in finance, in all these areas. Like, our society conditions us to look at that, right? You're going and working out and you're getting in shape and you're like, oh, but my arm is still flabby, so work on the problem area, right? That's where you're going to work out, in the problem area. Or, oh, you're getting good grades, you've got A's everywhere, but you got a C over here, you better work on that and improve that C. And so there's something about, I think, especially here in the US, I can't speak to other cultures, but definitely here in the US, to always looking at what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, right? When you're looking at your finances, it's like, where can I cut expenses? And what's the highest interest rate credit card to pay off first? Like, it's all very wrong, negative focused. And we tend to be like that. We tend to bring that viewpoint to everything that we work on. And I think this is why a lot of people have a challenge with Pinterest, because when we bring that approach of looking at what's wrong, let me fix it, we bring that approach to Pinterest, we tend to be programming ourselves visually with everything that's wrong. And that kind of becomes our point of reference. And we bring that into what we're creating, and then we don't have more success. So Pinterest, it's actually really easy to figure out what is working and then what direction to go forward. And I guess I don't want to say necessarily easy. It is simple, right? It is simple. And this is what I teach in my program, but it's not like readily intuitive. Like we're not going to naturally go there, because we're going to naturally go to what's negative, because that's what we're taught. So first, let's talk about, how do we measure what working / what is not working. So one thing I tell people in my program, when we're doing our KPIs, our key performance indicators, we're looking at, the numbers, the data, the analytics. This is where we're going to go to find out if things are working or not, right? We're going to look at Google Analytics, Pinterest Analytics. We're going to look at our sales data, those kind of things. One thing that I tell them is that we want to be looking at what's performing the best. Okay. We want to look at what is working. We're not going to learn too much from the stuff that's not working. All we're going to do is fill our brain with visuals of stuff that does not work, right? So with Pinterest, it's pretty easy to tell what's working. First, you're going to look at your analytics, your Google Analytics, your Pinterest Analytics, your revenue data, and that kind of thing. If you have products, or you have ad revenue or affiliate or whatever it is, find out, okay, where am I making the money and what's getting the traffic. So in Pinterest Analytics, it's pretty simple to just go pull up Pinterest Analytics and look at what are the top performers. It's all right there in Pinterest Analytics. It'll say your top performing boards, your top performing pins. You can go through the analytics and look at, okay, based on impressions, what are my top performers? That means what's getting the most eyeballs on it. Based on outbound clicks, what are the top performers? Those are the things that are getting the traffic to your site. You can also go to Google Analytics and sort your top posts, or all of your posts, by incoming by referral source, and look at, okay, which posts are getting traffic from Pinterest, right? We totally can do all of that stuff. And what we want to do is start looking at the top, and we want to analyze what is working. What makes those pins at the top, right? Those pins that are getting the traffic, those boards that are getting the eyeballs and the traffic. What is making those work? What is making them special? What is making them click for people so that people are like, yes, that's what I want? What is making those show up in Pinterest search and show up in Pinterest recommendations so that people will actually go and click over? So we want to analyze what is working on those posts. We don't want to analyze what's not working, right? Because all we're going to do is spend a lot of time on what's not working. Like, who cares? We want to spend time on what is working. So once we can analyze and figure out, okay, what is working as far as my designs, my keywords, those kinds of things, sometimes it might be the topic. Then we want to create a plan to replicate that. This is literally strategy creation, is creating a plan to replicate what has been working, right? The platform is saying, hey, we're putting eyeballs on this content, right? So now, what is it in that content that made them put eyeballs on it, right? We want to figure out what that is. And then we just create a plan to replicate that. Now, this sounds like way too easy, right? And this is why everybody doesn't do this, because it does sound easy. If we're like, oh, go look at the top performers and make decisions based on that, that doesn't sound as sexy, enticing, clickbaity as like top 5 mistakes you need to stop making on Pinterest today. And while there are value in those videos that people make, and videos like that I've made, I think sometimes when we're leading with the negative, it just becomes like really overwhelming for people, right? It doesn't need to be that hard. And then the other thing that I think happens with people is if they're like, okay, these pins are already working, these pins are already sending me traffic, I've already mastered that, I don't need to continue working there. And it's kind of like that thing where the kid has all A's and they have the one class that has the C. So they're like, oh, I'm going to work on the class that has the C to get the grade better. But there's no top, right? There's no ceiling to where we can go. So if it's doing well, it can do even better, right? It's kind of like there's a story about farmers when they're raising prize-winning pumpkins. And I read this story in The Pumpkin Plan a book by Mike Michalowicz. So when farmers are trying to raise these prize award-winning pumpkins that are super huge that you see like at the county fair and stuff like that, they grow a lot of pumpkins. And then they look for the pumpkins that are doing the best and that have the most potential, and they go with those. They don't look at, oh, this little scraggly pumpkin over here is struggling, let me put more energy into that. They're like, no, this one over here is already growing big, it already has all the markers of potential, it's already going where I need it to go, I'm going to put more energy on that, right? And then learn lessons from that and apply that the next year. So the same thing here. We're not going to keep pouring energy and attention on stuff that is not working. We're going to pour energy and attention on stuff that is working and figure out how to replicate that. So just because you are already having success with something doesn't mean that we've already mastered it. There is always room for improvement and always room for something to grow. The other thing is that, like I explained before, we're conditioned to look for problems, not what's good. And this is what I love about Pinterest. Pinterest so much wants to be a positive place on the internet. And I don't know if this was intentional by design, but like the way that creating a Pinterest strategy works is we don't look at the stuff that didn't work. We look at the stuff that worked, right? And so we look at the positive things. So why is this good? All right. So looking at what's broken all the time fills your head with like stuff that's broken. Whereas when we are looking just at the top, just at the cream of the crop, just at, okay, these are my top performing pins, these are my top performing boards, how do I make them perform even better? What lessons can I take from them to go and apply to my next pins I'm going to make? If we're looking at the top, we're filling our head with the cream of the crop, right? We are really like nourishing our brain, nourishing our marketing mind with things that are going to help us propel forward rather than things that are going to keep us down, like oh, this pin is doing really bad. Like, why would I want to look at a pin that's doing bad? I don't want that in my head. I don't want that visual in my head. I don't want any of that in my head. I just want to know what works really well, right? So that then when I go to sit down to make pins, I'm like, that's all in my head, right? And what's great about this is it helps you get really attuned to what works. You'll start to, as you look just at the top performing stuff in your analytics, and you work, like I said, creating a plan to replicate that, etc. You start to become really attuned to what works. It starts to become really natural to you. And it's like you're programming your brain for, hey, this is this is how I approach Pinterest, is just with the things that are going to give me success. And the other thing that I like about it too is you can feel good about what you accomplished. I think there's so much in our industry of looking at like, oh, where things are bad, right? Like, and I'm not saying be ignorant or Pollyanna about stuff, but so much looking at like, oh, I didn't do this. I should have did this. I could have had that. I wish my traffic was better. Like looking at those things that we don't spend time feeling good about the things we have accomplished. And so when we're looking at that top stuff, we can have a little bit of a celebration. It gives us a little bit of a dopamine hit. It really helps with training our brain. Like our brain is all neural pathways, right? And so if we're constantly looking at negative stuff, we're going to be like writing those pathways very deeply into our brain. If we're looking at positive stuff, we're going to be writing our brain with more neural pathways that go towards the positive, that go towards what is working. So it's good for us to feel good about what we've accomplished, right? Like I know when I'm looking at my analytics and I'm like, oh my gosh, this post, like it just came to the top of my analytics. It's doing really well. How awesome. Like take some time to celebrate that and feel good about what you've done. Feel good about the good you're helping in the world, right? Because you're putting your ideas out there. People are finding them on Pinterest. You're helping make their lives better. Even if it's silly stuff like how to make a pumpkin pie, right? Like that is important to people. Even the little things we do that move forward to make people's lives better. That's what all of us are doing as content creators and people that are selling products, right? That's what our goal is. We got into it because we're like, I want to help people make people's lives better. And that's why I'm having this product, or I'm going to be blogging about this thing. So it's good for us to celebrate when we are doing that, right? And looking at the top things in the analytics will really help us be able to do that, to identify those things and go like, wow, that post really is helping people. Look at 4,000 people saw that post this month. How cool. And 800 of them clicked through. Like that stuff can make you feel good. So feel good in it, right? We shouldn't I don't even want to say, I don't want to use the word should. We're in this business and there's a tendency to kind of beat ourselves up by looking at like everything that's wrong. And it's okay to spend some time focusing on what is going right. So really quick, I want to recap the steps for you guys to take. And you guys, I haven't been sharing step-by-step stuff that much. So when I'm dropping nuggets like this, like I really hope that you you take it and run with it, because I don't always do this. Like I do this inside my paid programs and for my coaching clients, but I don't always do this on the free side, like giving actual steps. So first thing, you're going to look at your analytics, Google Analytics, Pinterest Analytics, and any kind of revenue stuff that you have tied to your site. You're going to analyze what is working. We're not going to look at the low performers. We're only going to look at the high performers. And this is for making decisions about what to put on Pinterest next. You're going to look at your high performers. What is working about those pins? What is working about those boards? What, is it the topic? Is it the keywords? Is it how it's optimized? Is it the visuals? You're going to look at those things, and then you're going to replicate those going forward and create a plan. So you're going to say, okay, what I noticed with my audience when I'm talking about tacos, they really like the pins that have this and this and this. Those are at the top, and that have, these kind of fonts, and that use these kind of keywords, that kind of thing. So you're going to, and it might not even be as blatant as that. Like you might have to go do some keyword research, but you're going to go and look and say, okay, here's what's in common of those things that are up at the top. And that's what I'm going to incorporate into my future pins. We're not just going to repin the same old stuff. Like if it's a high performer, you can repin it. And there are some guidelines around that, but we really want to be looking at, like, as we're creating new pins, what can we replicate from our current success? What lessons can we take from that and apply to the creation of new pins? And that's going to be standard pins and video pins, like I talked about earlier. So then after you've created a plan to replicate that, you'll put that out in the wild, right? You're going to go publish it to Pinterest, and then you're going to come back to analytics and see what worked. What I see people doing, and I was going to kind of wrap it up there, but this brings me to a good point. I had I was looking at old testimonials, and somebody in there was like, I used to look at all my pins right away, and Jennifer stopped me from doing that. I was like laughing about that post, because there is a tendency to create a pin and then want to go back to it and go, oh, like, how did it perform? And it doesn't really work like that anymore on Pinterest. It used to. You could put a pin and then you could see analytics, and it would show it to a lot of Pinterest would show that pin to a lot of people right away. Doesn't really work that way anymore. And it's kind of depressing if you go do that, because they take time. Not every pin's going to take off right away. In fact, very, very few will. But they're gonna build over time. So what's great about it is it's almost kind of like scattering seeds, right? You're gonna pick the best seed. You're gonna give it the best soil. You're gonna give it the best water. This is all in the optimization of the pin, right? We're going to make sure the graphic looks great. It's got keywords. It's on an optimized board. The description is well written. The graphic is set up to be competitive in the search feed for the keyword term we're targeting, all those great things. So we're going to do all that to give it the best chance of success, just like if we're planting seeds. But we don't know which seeds are going to sprout. We don't know how quickly they're going to come up. And if you've ever grown a garden and you put seeds in the ground, you know that like some stuff comes up really fast and is super strong. Other stuff is kind of weak. And then it gets super strong. Some seeds never sprout. And you're just like, I don't know what happened with that one. Same thing with Pinterest, right? We got to give it time. But the beauty of it is we don't have to look at the individual pins and the things that are failing down at the bottom. We just need to look at the cream of the crop. If a pin is going to do really well, it's going to pop up to the top of your analytics. So we don't need to spend any time focused on all the things that didn't work. We only need to spend time focused on the things that are working. Try to replicate, analyze to see what those were, and then replicate that into your strategy. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys if this resonates with you, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And if you have a friend who is working on Pinterest right now and they're frustrated, or you're working on Pinterest and you're frustrated, let me know. But if you have a friend that's working on this, go share this with them, because we don't need to focus on the negative stuff on Pinterest. We only need to focus on the positive stuff, and life becomes so much simpler if all you're doing is looking at the cream of the crop on the top. You will save so much time on your KPIs. You're going to save so much time on analyzing what is and isn't working, or really what is working. We don't need to analyze necessarily what isn't working, because that'll kind of suss out as we are only focused on what is working. And you are going to get more, you'll save your brain from some of the trauma of always looking at negative stuff. And then you'll also achieve success faster. Like, it just will happen. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys are, I hope you guys have a good evening. I'm sorry, I'm like losing steam now. I plan to do this only like 10 minutes. Like, I want to start making Facebook Lives that are only 10 minutes long, but I tend to be long-winded apparently. So anyways, I appreciate you guys being here and watching all this time. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Let's have a conversation down in the comments. And again, if you have a friend that is struggling with this, I'd be really grateful and really honored if you share